Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. We're all here. And by all, I mean Joe, Ashley, Kyle. How's everyone doing?
Pretty good.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Lovely.
Just get right into it then.
Lovely.
We might do updates towards the end. We can see how everyone's feeling about their feelings about the 300 challenge, which is still going on. Are there any other updates for the community that we need? Human programs out. That's going well. Flawless execution by the team. It's going great.
Everything was nailed.
Yeah, everything's perfect.
Nailed.
Yeah, everyone's doing great. But let's get into this. I really like this study because I feel like it is headed in the direction we've been talking more about lately with undereating, overeating, hormones, like all these things are tying together. And we don't really cherry pick these studies to just prove that we're the best fitness company like in existence, but it just, for some reason, it just keeps working out. Like, yeah, it just keeps working out that the ultimate takeaway from these studies are you should be training with Garage Gym Athlete. So I'm going to say it at the beginning this time instead of the end.
There you go.
If you are not using Garage Gym Athlete as your source of programming, you're just sitting around here listening to some studies, listening to some topics. I get it. It's fine. We're fun. You want to hang out with us. But it's time to do the right thing and go to garagegymathlete.com and sign up for a 14-day free trial if you're not already one of our amazing athletes in the community, because we got it. We're doing it right. And I don't mind saying it. We're doing it right. And we're going to talk about why today. So the study was done in 2021. The name of the study is Energy Compensation and Metabolic Adaptation, the Biggest Loser Study, reinterpreted. So the purpose of this retrospective reinterpretation was to explore the possibility that persistent metabolic adaptation observed in the Biggest Loser study might be related to constrained total daily energy expenditure due to high levels of sustained physical activity. Okay, I'm going to cut through all the crap there, and I'm just going to tell you what I think this study was, my words. So everyone's heard of The Biggest Loser. And if you haven't, okay, do they still do that show? Or is it like not politically correct anymore?
I don't think so. I don't know. But I don't think they do.
The last season was
I
with
can check real quick.
Steve Cook, which was, I think, 2 years ago or maybe a year ago.
I think I've only ever watched maybe like one episode. I've never even like followed a season, but to my understanding of The Biggest Loser, it was a show somewhere on TV, some channel, network, and they would bring on a bunch of overweight, obese people. They would have celebrity trainers come train them excessively for a number of hours every single day. They would restrict their diets. And then these people would lose weight, and whoever lost the most by the end won. Is that the correct breakdown of The Biggest Loser?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. And they looked at that as a study multiple times. And the one that we're looking at, they're 6 years out from this baseline group, and they're just re-looking at all of their kind of like their data. And so most of them, let's see, they had 14 participants. 2 of them, I guess, weren't able to follow through or something like that. But what the real thing that they're looking at is this metabolic adaptation thing, which just means, and I think describing this in the most simple terms is going to help everyone today. When you start burning a lot more calories than normal, and you also start restricting a lot of your calories, a lot more than normal, your body's going to kind of freak out. It doesn't know what's going on inside. Like, it has no idea what's going on. So it's going into starvation mode. It's trying to conserve. It really doesn't know what's happening. Because if you look at it from like this primal evolutionary standpoint or whatever, like your body thinks that, okay, really bad things are happening and we need to conserve. We need to keep as much as we can. And these are some of the metabolic things that are happening when you go on these very, very extreme diets, exercise programs, and everything else. And so how that equates to like your daily energy expenditure is it's just, it doesn't continually go up. It kind of like freezes in a sense. Like it doesn't, more exercise doesn't necessarily equate to a higher RMR for every single person. So your resting metabolic rate. Like, so if I'm just sitting here, I have a certain number of calories that I burn as my RMR. It has to do with how much fat-free mass you have. It has to do with how much muscle mass you have. And so all of those things said, that's really what they're looking at. They're looking at how people basically jacked up their metabolism by doing these crazy workout programs with crazy diet, and their RMR doesn't change all that much, even over 6 years. Like they don't continue to burn a lot of calories on a weekly basis. And so that's I guess the long and short of metabolic adaptation that you need to know. Do you guys want any clarifying points on that from your understanding of metabolic adaptation?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. It's basically just your resting metabolic rate just got really jacked up and stayed that way.
Yeah. And I think people have this thought that if you do act like you're a machine, a robot, and you just like put in the 6 hours of work a day and you eat all the food or eat little of the food, not enough food, that your body's just going to adapt and overcome, but it's not. Your body's going to be like, I don't know what the hell's happening. I'm going to do my own thing. That's what your body does. And that's kind of what this study proves. And so that's all we're covering. That's what we're talking about today. We can pull things from the study, but I just wanted to put it in very simple terms of what metabolic adaptation is. It doesn't work exactly how you think it does when you get into the extremes here. And so let's just piece it out. What are your thoughts on the study? Anything interesting that you found or want to cover?
You can go first.
Oh, I can go. Oh, you said Kyle, you can go first.
Like,
cool. I thought you said I can go first. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I was like, oh, I'm sitting here waiting. Okay, cool. Biggest Loser, got into it, or at least Hannah got into it a few years ago. We watched a couple seasons of it. But even then, while I was watching it, I was like, I just don't know if this is the right way to do things. and I will like throw in that caveat that when you're watching The Biggest Loser, they're dealing with like morbidly obese people. Like we're talking about people who are extremely overweight, right? 300-400 pounds is like the average for somebody who's a contestant on that show. So I don't know how many of our athletes are dealing with weight loss or facing weight loss on that scale, right? Needing to lose that much weight. Unfortunately, people that size are becoming more of a subset of our population. That's just kind of, which we talk about that a lot, about just the standard American diet and not prioritizing, exercise and things like that. But anyway, so when you're talking about The Biggest Loser TV show, it's like you're dealing with people in an extreme circumstance and you're throwing an extreme protocol at them to take them to another extreme circumstance. Does that make sense? So like, to me, it's just like this TV show is not, I don't think average people need to like do what they're doing on here, on this TV show, but they covered some of that in the study of like some of the things that they did, how much time they were spending in the gym and exactly what they were doing or not exactly what they were doing, but some of the things they were doing in the gym. And I think they restricted them to like 1,200 calories a day, which is an extreme caloric deficit. And they're putting them through a lot of high intensity cardio 6 days a week and encouraging them to also work out beyond that and all that kind of stuff. It's just basically a lot of the things that we talk about not doing here on the podcast. They were taking them from one extreme to another using extreme methods. And so that's just, to me, it's just not something that we should do. But basically after 6 years after being on the show, these 14 participants regained an average of like 70% of the weight they lost. And so after 6 years, they regained like 70% of what they had lost while on the show. And to me, it's just like more evidence. Maybe we shouldn't do it that way. Maybe we shouldn't go on the extreme.
And to your point, and I just want to throw this in there, like that's the whole reason this study exists. So they gain all this weight back, but what the study is saying is like, maybe it's not just their like tendency to not be able to stick to a plan. Right. That's not really it. And that's what a lot of fit people probably think. They're like, yeah, okay, you're overweight once, you lost some weight, and then whatever, you didn't have the discipline to keep it up. And this study is saying, no, they have a metabolic adaptation that substantially decreases their resting metabolic rate, maybe permanently, because of what they did to themselves. And so there is some truth to this. This isn't like a special snowflake everyone needs to be catered to. This is, they screwed up their metabolic system and now they might not be able to recover it. And I think that they can, but they're saying at the 6-year point, there's not a lot of hope. And so that's why their RMR has been decreased through what they put their body through. So they're not, when they're sitting around, they're no longer burning as many calories as they did, like even pre crazy exercise program. That's really bad. That means that you'd have to, like if my RMR got cut in half, I would have to triple my amount of workout time, maybe quadruple it every day, just to maintain if my RMR got cut in half. And that's a scary place to be, because that's where you burn a majority of your calories. You don't burn a majority in your workout. If you guys aren't noticing that with people who are tracking daily over decades, like I do like a 300 calorie workout some days, I'm going to burn 3,000 that day or more still, but I only did a 300 calorie workout. You moving around, sitting around, like just having muscle mass, all these things burn calories for you. So it's a big deal. And it goes way beyond just, these people couldn't stick to it. It goes much, much deeper than that.
Well, and also to your point, to add even more to that, like to give actual numbers, like the average resting metabolic rate for these 14 participants before they started the show was 2,600 calories per day burned. That's their resting metabolic rate. After being on the show for 30 weeks, so once the show was done filming, the average resting metabolic rate was 1,996 calories per day. So went down significantly. After 6 years, so 6 years after the show was over, it was 1,903, which means the resting metabolic rate continued to decline over 6 years after the show was over. And so really, if you're gaining weight back, like your resting metabolic rate should be going up, but it's not. It's actually going down. And so it's actually like inhibiting their like it's physiologically hindering them from maintaining or from losing weight again. Like they've screwed themselves up so bad that it's hindering them from actually making any progress or maintaining any progress. So like their resting metabolic rate actually continued to go down for 6 years after the show was over. So it's this is an extreme thing that we're talking about. It's not something simple.
And that's why I care so much about these types of studies and getting people to know about it, because I say these kind of things on the podcast all the time of like, I don't believe fitness is just this like, oh, I'll pick this person or that person or whatever. Like if I had my way, and a lot of personal trainers and coaches disagree with this, I would regulate the shit out of what we're doing. Like I would make it a doctorate program to be able to be a personal trainer. Like I would make it some high level stuff for people to be messing around with other people's health, because in my opinion, if these people actually have a jacked up metabolic rate for the rest of their lives, this study gives them a great lawsuit to go attack the Biggest Loser, right? Because no one knew that was even
100%.
possible, but now it is, right? And so who you pick for programming is important, and what kind of exercise you're doing is important, and how you eat and how you plan to lose weight by picking off your macronutrients and your calorie deficits. All of that stuff is so important to the fact where you could screw up your body for the rest of your life if you do it incorrectly. Am I trying to scare you? Yes, because it's actually that important. If you look at this stuff. So it's just things that everyone needs to be thinking about when they're acting like fitness is not this big deal and anybody can do it. Like, it's not. Like, you need to know what you're doing and doing it correctly.
Preach.
That's all I'll say for now. Ashley, you want to go next?
Yeah. So, I mean, just to Kyle's point, he talked about that they only had 1,200 calories. The amount of minutes that they had them train was 90 minutes a day, all in that cardio, high intensity circuit training, and then encourage them to do even more because of the show, there was a person that was let go every week. And that was the person that lost the lowest amount of body mass. So like, someone lost 10 pounds, but everybody else like lost 25, 23, whatever, that person was let go. Right. So
it was based on their percentage too. Like they individualized it a little bit, just so like your percentage of body weight that you lost versus somebody else's, but they all had like, you need to lose this much to have a higher percentage than this person. So it was still.
So their incentive was to try to lose this as fast as they possibly can, right? Because it's every single week. So again, I feel like we're just harping on the same point, but it's true. Like from someone who has been hormonally and still suffering from it, like it's like the high intensity stuff is just not what your body needs. And so I said, for my takeaway is slow and steady wins this race. Like we have the EO3 elements, not just our programming, but like things that you want to implement daily, over decades. If you just need to implement these things one at a time, even if it's taking an element, like I'm going to implement this element for 4 weeks, and then I'm going to implement the second element for 4 weeks, and just go so on and so forth, and do this in a healthy way is so much better for your body than what these people did. So that's basically my takeaway for this whole thing. And it just makes me so sad for these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joe.
Yeah. So Biggest Loser was definitely aimed at, being a show. You got to keep people entertained. So they don't really, probably be more impatient on having people lose weight, and it just causes more drama. So that's kind of like their aiming factor. And while, their idea might have been in the right place to encourage people to work out and eat less, it's just like, well, we also have a show to push. So we just need to pump this up a notch a bit. And well, what weight loss and timetables should not be one size fits all. And that's kind of one of the things that takeaways as well is, if you are well over 300 pounds and you need to lose 100 pounds, your timetable is going to be much, much longer than a 200-pound guy that needs to lose 10 pounds. He can cut in like 8 weeks and maybe do a little bit more of an extreme and then like stop. But if the larger you are, the more you need to lose, the longer your timetable is. You can't just emulate what you do compared to somebody else. And this connects to, the Instagram influencers that we've kind of harped on a few times. Is if you see a program marketed telling you can do X in this amount of time, just move on, because they don't know you. They don't know what you need. They don't know what the circumstances are, because it does not completely factor you into it. They're just going to either throw you something that's pre-made and say, well, this worked for this person kind of thing, or maybe you just need to do it a little bit longer, but there's nothing aimed towards you. So that's another thing to keep in mind with those kind of sold programs out there, the influencers who are just trying to hook you with these fancy numbers, and kind of like how the Biggest Loser was. I am interested if I don't know if they broke down all of their hormones. I know they took a couple of hormones in the study, but I'd be interested if like cortisol or something like that was raised with these people, and how their levels changed throughout. Because if you're starving yourself, there's a flight or fight response happening. So they're going to be retaining that weight, and it's just going to be bad So it actually is an interesting point here you brought up about like if lawsuits happen, like if people come to their senses, they could probably have a case, and then that'll be bad. So yeah, that was
Not
kind
to
of my
mention the mental aspect of it too.
Mhm.
Like I feel like they made these people potentially hate training. You know what I mean? Like they're just
Yeah.
screaming at these people, telling them to do all this stuff. And then when they come to do it themselves, they probably are like, dear God, I don't want to do this, but I have to because
Yeah.
I've got to, you know, like how awful is that?
yeah. So stay away from the extremes. You know, do you have to people that need to be aware that things take time, and the bigger your goal, the bigger your aspirations, the longer the timetable. And it's not going to be like, hey, in 3 months I know to do this. Oh well, my friend's doing this 3-month cut or cleanse. They're a third of the size of me, but I'm just going to do it too, and you know we're going to hope for the same response. And like if you have a ton of weight to lose, that initial shock, your body's probably going to lose a ton at first because it could be inflammation, it could be water, it could be all kinds of stuff, but then it's going to level out. And then that's also when people lose you know, either have to change tracks or change something else, something more extreme, because they think, oh, well, I've leveled off, so I need to do something more extreme now. But that's not the case. It's just a natural response that, okay, your body's regulating now. Now it's just going to start to slowly get to the new norm, but it'll just take a bit longer.
It's stuff like this that makes me, I mean, I don't even want to be part of the fitness industry. Like, to be honest, I hate the whole thing. I hate it from top to bottom. I hate the nutrition advice. I hate everyone on Instagram. I hate, I just hate it all. And this can be my soapbox, but like, I really like, I find it embarrassing sometimes if I have to like get into that situation where someone's like, what do you do? Like, I don't even want to say that I'm associated with fitness because of how ridiculously stupid this market is, you know. And I'm glad that we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing it. And that's the only reason I can keep moving forward, because I truly feel that we're doing things the right way. But I mean, the whole, everything. And like I said, the reason I would regulate it is because of how many, like Joe, you just mentioned, like my friend's doing this, I'm going to do it too. How many like coaches there are that are just like, I had success with me, so I can have success with you. Like, if that's where, and I've always said this, if that's where it needs to start to like get you fired up and into the career, the profession, that's fine. But you can't end there. And because you're going to start running into problems almost immediately. Probably by the time you have 3 clients, you'll be like, I wonder why they don't all like follow the same math as me. This is strange, you know. And it's going to become very apparent that you don't know what you're doing. And that's why I think more regulation in this industry is necessary. If there actually was a lawsuit and they sued this network, whoever it was that was on, and they won, the big downside there is it would open up a case for every probably boot camp at like big box gyms and maybe even some CrossFit gyms or some hardcore personal trainers and all this stuff, where everyone's just thought this entire time that, yeah, you could just push people as hard as you want. It doesn't really matter, you know, and that's not true. And I've worked with a lot of people who are very obese, and I will always start a conversation with people about their goals. And say someone is 200 pounds above where they would like to be. They want to lose 200 pounds. And, you know, the next question is, okay, what's your time frame? When would you like to have lost 200 pounds? And they're like, 6 months. I'm like, okay, you know, a year. Like they don't know. They don't know what's actually possible when they start to see the look on my face. And I'm like, but my question back to them is always, how long did it take you to get yourself into this situation? Because, and I think that's a good question for everybody to answer, because if you were like into fitness and you're pretty healthy, and then you had a rough 3 years, let's say, and you weren't working out that much, diet wasn't great, and you gained X amount of weight over 3 years. My realistic expectation to you is it's going to take about 3 years to work yourself out of that. You might be able to do it a little bit faster. But maintaining the safe way of doing though is where you start to get sketchy. Is like, yeah, we could absolutely lose 3 years worth of weight in a very short amount of time, but can we keep your metabolic system intact while doing it is the challenge. And so that's why stretching your goals over a long enough timeline, pretty much as long as it is, if it took you 20 years to work yourself into this situation, I have really bad news, right? If I'm like, well, all right, we got 2 decades worth of work here. That's an immediate turnoff, right? Like no one's going to work with a coach who's like, I have a plan for you. It's 20 years. They're going to be like, nope. There's a person on Instagram who says I could have it in 6 weeks. I'm like, okay, go try them out. Just so you know, they could jack up your metabolic system for the rest of your life. Could be permanent, but I'll be here when you're ready. So it's just tough. And I wanted to read one passage from the review. This wasn't straight from the studies in the review of it, but it says, if physical activity is a major cornerstone of your weight loss approach, it's important to recognize that some degree of energy compensation will occur. So the whole thing we're talking about, metabolic adaptation. This is particularly true if you're doing really large amounts of physical activity or you're inherently predisposed to a high level of compensation. Finally, ambitious diet attempts can be pretty draining in terms of subjective energy level, which could lead to reduced energy expenditure from volitional physical activity throughout the day. These various effects will be accompanied by a hormonal milieu that generally promotes energy conservation, catabolic processes, and hunger, but non-pharmacological efforts to impact these hormones individually are probably futile. These hormonal fluctuations are responses to hypothalamic integration of information related to energy intake, energy expenditure, and physical activity, and the hypothalamic response to these inputs is robust. So just think about that for a second. Like hit the rewind 30 seconds if you have to re-listen to that on the podcast. It's saying that if you go crazy, the response is not just going to be weight loss. There's going to be a whole
slew of things.
Yeah, a whole slew of things that are just going to like screw you up. And it's crazy. And my area of research I would like to go down, since we don't have an overwhelming majority of people in these extreme obese situations at Garage Gym Athlete. We do tend to work with people, they might want to lose weight, but they're not 200-300 pounds overweight in most circumstances. If that's you, you're perfectly welcome here. I'm just saying by what we do have. My interest is what's happening to people who are already relatively healthy, who are still doing these things to themselves. So if you are already around a healthy body weight, but you have an incredible level of physical activity, you're not eating enough, they're all high intensity workouts. Like what happens then? I mean, I don't know if I could think of a better cocktail for ruining your metabolic system than CrossFit and everything that it teaches, right? Like it's just, it's unfortunate. I'm hoping they figure it out eventually, maybe all they need to do is change the definition. That's all they need to do. That's all they need to do, because everything else with CrossFit is fine. Functional movement, constantly varied, all these things are fine. You can do constantly varied versions of zone 2 and weightlifting days. And like, that's always the pushback when I talk crap about CrossFit. It's like, oh, you haven't had a good coach. And it's like, I'm just going by the definition, guys. You can do whatever subjective measure you want of what CrossFit is, but the objective measure is it's got a definition, and it says that it has to be high intensity every time that you do it. There's just a lot to unpack here. My takeaway was the daily over decades approach. Like that's what you have to do. I think it's a lot like getting out of debt. I've been in a lot of debt. I've gotten out of debt. And when you're in a lot of debt, and my wife and I were $100,000 in debt, and we first started getting out of debt, we only had what we had budget-wise to put towards it. If it was like $100 a month, it was $100 a month. If it was $500 a month, cool. If a couple extra $1,000 came in somehow, somewhere, and we put it there, like you just do what you can, but you can't look at $100,000 a debt when you're making not a lot of money and just be like, you know what? I'm going to burn my entire life to the ground until I get this paid off. Like you can only do what you can do, right? Your budget is your budget. You put a little bit extra, eventually it will be gone. Eventually it will be gone if you just stay on that course. And that is that disciplined daily over decades approach, as opposed to, consolidating credit cards and getting loans from family members, like all these bad things that you could be doing to try and do it, when you just have to do what you can. So if you can commit to just like 30 minutes a day, and you need to lose a lot of weight, and you can just, like Ashley said, just commit to one of our EO3 elements per day or per month, and then slowly build those habits, you are absolutely not going to see these rapid, fast changes in your diet on a weekly basis, but you will see it on like a monthly and quarterly basis.
Mhm.
And it'll start to come down slower, and it'll be the healthiest way that you could possibly do it. And I think that's just the approach that everyone needs to take, is that daily over decades mentality. Completely detach yourself from the end goal. You need to completely attach yourself to the process. Like, I do this, I exercise this many times per day for this many minutes. I don't really care where that gets me, because there's so many other reasons to exercise beyond a number on a scale. Like, we've talked about those too recently, like mental and like all the things that it triggers in your body. So I think just committing to the daily over decades process and mentality, which unfortunately is also the hardest thing for a human being to do. I still don't know why. I think it's because we all kind of suck a little bit, but it's just my opinion. It's very hard to do. I don't care what it is. It's hard to do something every day. It doesn't really matter. So that's the approach. That's my takeaway. And that's all I've got on The Biggest Loser. You guys have anything else you want to throw in there?
If you are super overweight, the human program is a great place to start, I would say too. You can even scale that down to do what you need to do.
Yeah. And then just maybe stay away from the glycolytic day, which is day 6. So you guys are good? Nothing else on this one?
I would say real quickly, my kill comfort for this one was eat more slowly. To me, this is an actionable tip that everybody can implement immediately. You can start it right now. The very next meal that you have, just slow down, chew it properly. Don't gulp it down and eat it really fast. Science has proven that eating more slowly helps you to maintain and to lose weight even better. Like, that's one small change you can make to your habits. That's one small habit you can develop. Just eat more slowly, pay attention to what you're eating. And if that's, if you can master that, also, by the way, it's in the EO3 elements.
Yeah.
I was about to say, you're basically just recommending an element.
Recommending the EO3 elements. I'm pulling this one out though, because it's like, I feel like people can get bogged down by macro plans and cookbooks and recipes and, time restricted feeding or not, and all that kind of stuff. But like, here's one small thing every single person who listens to this podcast can do right away. Just eat more slowly. You're starting with your next meal. Just slow down and eat it more slowly. And then do that again for the next meal you have. And then after that, every single one, just pay attention to what you're eating and slow down. And you're going to see some results just from that. So. And
I do want to say, I would say like Garage Gym Athlete, yeah, we're doing it right, all that stuff. But at the same time, I don't want to come across as like arrogant or egotistical, because the only reason we're doing things more correctly now is because we've done things incorrectly
right.
a lot of times, but it's our approach that's ever evolving and changing when we read the studies and we dive into it. Like, my initial journey into all the zone 2 stuff had nothing to do with metabolic health. I was more interested in how to increase someone's aerobic base, because I just was realizing over and over anecdotally through athletes that you can't just put them through more and then that their aerobic base would increase. So you have to add this like base element of aerobic training through zone 2 to increase their aerobic capacity. That's how it all started. It was all performance driven. But the more I pulled that thread and started going down and further into the rabbit hole, I started to learn about metabolic syndrome and what high intensity exercise mimicked versus what zone 2 would do, and mitochondrial health and all these other things. And I was like, holy crap, we need to back down. We need to back down on, we can still have intensity in there. It's not inherently bad on like an individual training session. It's the repeated chronic nature of high intensity. We need to cut back down on that. We need more low intensity stuff. So we have done things improperly in the past, but we adjust our approach based off of the science that we're reading and things that we're seeing. And I don't think a lot of other coaches do that. I think they're more like, this worked for me. It worked for, I don't know, at least half the people who come to work with me. The other half, screw them. They're not trying hard enough. And I think that's just the approach of most coaches. So we're not perfect, but we try hard. All right, let's get into the topic today. I'll let you explain it, Joe.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about wearables and tracking and all that activity stuff, especially with the 300 challenge. People want to either track their days, and then it's like, okay, now I need to track my minutes, and then it's okay, well, now I need to track my calories. So there's people are asking how they're doing on their actual tracking, whether it's what their wearable is or sheets or anything. So I just wanted us to go over, since we've talked about the 300 challenge some, how we are tracking, how we use our wearable, what we do with it. Every wearable has different settings, different things. And I know all the Garmin users are like, okay, what activity are you guys using for this? What are you doing for this? So I'll just kind of kick it off and say mine. So I wear Garmin. I have a Phoenix 5. And I pretty much, even though I'm on strength track, every workout I do is a strength workout, because in Garmin, they have strength, they have cardio, and then some other stuff. I've done cardio in the past, and like the metrics kind of give you the same stuff. The only difference is that cardio, you can kind of add, like the timers are different, but personalize the screen anyway. And you can like turn on GPS for cardio, but I don't care about that. So I just turn on strength. The heart rate data is going to report the same. One thing that I like about the strength one for Garmin, though, is that on the very last screen, or if you go up the screen, it has sets and then rest time. So if you hit the lap button, it'll put you on a rest timer, and then you can hit the lap button again, and it'll do it for sets. So if I have any sort of like 10-minute AMRAP or 10-minute for quality kind of thing, 20-minute thing, I just start a set timer, and then I have that set timer for 10, 20 minutes. And then once that timer happens, I just hit the lap button again, and it goes into my rest interval, and then I go into something else. So I guess some people might actually use it for like every set. I only use it for if there's like a circuit or something like that to where I need to watch it my time. So strength, I do that for Garmin. And then other than that, it's, at the end of my workout, if I'm throwing in a stationary bike, I do an indoor bike. On run days, I just do run. So pretty much only do like 3 activities on Garmin. And then I've worn my chest strap more now, just so I can get accurate heart rate data for calories and stuff, even though I'm only doing level 1. I'm just interested in getting that heart rate data. And all that is going to Strava, which then goes to the Excel sheet that Marco created. And we linked and had a video on that as well. So that's how mine are all being tallied, and how I use my Garmin, but nothing too crazy, too fancy. I'm not like hyper tracking on the watch. I just want to make sure I get the time and my heart rate. And after that, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. Running, I just like accurate GPS. But Jerred, do you have something?
Me?
You want
me to go next?
I thought you were leaning in to say, Ashley, you go next.
So everybody knows that I am a journal kind of gal. So that's how I'm doing my daily over decades challenge. I'm doing it via journal. I've kept journals for over 10 years now. So it's kind of fun to go back and look. Slash is kind of funny to think about too, because it's like, oh, well, I pulled 315 pounds on my deadlift, but I know I rounded my back on that one because I was not doing garage gym athlete training on that. But I just said, I don't journal on any area of my life but workout. I don't know why, but it's just how it's always been. And writing it down just helps me. That's almost like an accountability thing for me. If I write it down, I always write it down Sundays when they release. And so it makes me say, okay, I'm going to get these days in. And even on like our rest days, Thursday, if I write in like zone 2 conditioning, I know I'm going to do some sort of zone 2 conditioning. So, and then Scott is awesome. Scott also trains, and when he comes home from work and stuff like that, after we put Connor to bed, we always like to take some time and just catch up on each other's day. And part of that is like, hey, how was your training session today? And it's kind of fun to talk about that. Slash, it's really awesome for me that I have a spouse that is, he understands the importance of my training and encourages that. I also use Team Builder. I think Team Builder is a great way. If you're doing like level 1 of anything, like 300 days, you can just go back to Team Builder and see how all the green dots or how, whatever days that you have entered in. Because again, like Team Builder has kept stuff that you've, if you're with us for 5 years ago, you can look and see, what your times were and compare them. And then the only wearable I've ever owned is a Square Watch, AKA the Apple Watch. And that's probably the only wearable I'll ever wear. And I do it a little differently from Joe. If I'm doing a strength session, then I do the strength session, and that's how I log it. If I'm doing conditioning of any sort, that is not running, that is kind of like a circuit, if you will, then I do it's cross training, I think is what Apple Watch counts it as. And And then obviously there's like a yoga one, and then there's a running one. And I always make sure that what's being shown is I always have my heart rate up now, as well as total calories. I think that's been a question on Facebook, active calories versus total calories. Just count your total calories for Apple Watch users. And I kind of like that Apple Watch doesn't show you. Somebody asked about steps. I forget who it was on the Facebook group, but Apple Watch doesn't show you your steps. And I'm not like a step tracker. And I think that we should all kind of get away from that. So I kind of like that it doesn't say like, oh, you stepped 2,000 times while you were back squatting today or whatnot. But anyways, that was just a little low blow on Fitbit, right, Kyle? Okay, Kyle, go.
Chopping them down. Not a sponsor, right? So it's all good.
That's right.
So I use the Polar Vantage V2. And so that's the watch that I have. I also have the Polar H10 chest strap, which is what I use when I'm training. So I'll put the chest strap on. And actually nowadays what I do, I'll actually take the watch off because I don't need the watch. I don't need to be wearing the watch because I have the chest strap. And so the chest strap is monitoring the heart rate for me. And so actually I'll just hang the watch up on the wall so like I can see my time and see what zone I'm in and all that kind of stuff. But I'm on the strength track, so I'm doing a lot of strength workouts as well. So, but like doing push-ups or doing like strict press or things like that, like bending my wrist back and things like that, it can wind up pushing buttons and on the watch, and I don't want to do that. And so like, since I'm tracking it with the chest strap and I don't need the watch on my wrist to track the heart rate, then I just take the watch off. If I have to go and do a run during the session or something like that, just strap the watch back on and walk out, do the run, come back, all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's just I have it hanging up on the wall and I can monitor my heart rate zone and all that kind of stuff while it's up there. So that's the way that I use it. Also, as soon as I upload that, it goes to, so Polar has its own tracking software, which all of them have, but it's called Polar Flow. And so once you sync it to there, then it tracks all the workouts, all your metrics, everything that it tracked during the workout is uploaded there. And so I can pull it up in a calendar form and see like, these are the days that I trained. Here's what I did for that training. Here's how many calories I burned, my heart rate zones, all that kind of stuff. If I was running, here's the distance, all that kind of stuff. So it just tracks it all right there. But I also have it linked to Strava. So it's just another place to put it and just kind of double checking on things. And then went Dom Decker style and got the desk calendar. And it's actually hanging. It's not on my desk. It's hanging on the wall, but I go over and just mark. So like 28 out of 300 or whatever. That's what number I'm on, or actually I'm on 30. Today will be 30, but so today will be 30 out of 300. And I just take a Sharpie and just write it on there. So just keeping everything. Like I've got like three. Yeah. I've got like three things. I know, right? I've got like three things to do. But it's tracking it in 3 different places. So that's the way that I track it. That's the way that I use them. And also like, as far as like accountability and stuff, we do updates here on the podcast. We also in our team meetings, we always report, how many trainings, and we were doing that. We didn't start doing that for the Daily Over Decades challenge. Like we've been doing that for years. We just track, we tell each other how many training sessions we did and all that kind of stuff. So we've been doing that for a long time and having that accountability amongst each other. But so we're keeping that going. And so anyway, that's the way that I use it.
Jerred just added feelings to it. That was our tip.
Yeah. How are you feeling about the challenge? Well,
okay.
I'm feeling good, just like normal. I'm training. It's good. Doing yoga now. Oh, that was one thing. The Polar has different so kind of like Ashley. So like if I'm doing a yoga session, I'll turn it on yoga. If I'm doing a strength session, doing strength. If I'm only going to be doing running for that day, then I put it on run. Or if I'm doing the bike instead, I put it on indoor bike. So like I change it up kind of like what Ashley said. I use the various profiles that it has instead of just having workout, and so anyway, there you go. Even deeper into how I do things.
Got it. Hi, I'm Jerred, and I'm a Garmin
Hi,
user.
Jerred.
That's what I feel like right now a little bit. Yeah, so I use Garmin. I have the Phoenix 6. This will probably be my last wearable, to be honest. I think after this 300 is over, the 300 challenge is over at the end of this year, I will donate my Garmin and I will switch to Timex Ironman watch. I think I'm going back old school where nothing can track my heart rate or anything else. And part of the reason for that, I know this is kind of off topic of how you use your wearable, is how I don't want to use my wearable. Is I want to get a little bit more in tune with the natural feeling of all these things. And like we've talked about this stuff before, but I want to know when I'm in zone 2 without having to look or wear or something. And I feel like I'm really good at that right now. Like I've been trying it intentionally for a long time. And I do it all the time now. And I do it in different modalities too. So like if I'm doing a run, I will run for a solid, probably like 15 minutes before I'll even allow myself to look at the watch. And then I'll look at it and I'll be like, okay, I'm in zone 2, where back in the day, it was like every 30 seconds. Okay, look, keep looking over and over again. Because I want to make it more intuitive. I don't dislike a wearable. I just don't want to become any more dependent on it than I already am. I'm very much minimalist in most aspects. And so I use Team Builder. I pull it up. I look at the workout. I'm not great at green dots. I don't fill everything out. I only really track what I want to be able to look back on. And so a lot of times that might be a weight. If I'm like, I want to know how much I lifted the next time I do this, or if it's a workout that I know that we might repeat, I want to know what the time was. But other than that, I'm not going to log 5 sets of 10 of toes to bar because I want the green dot. And that's just how I actually use Team Builder, a very honest approach there. And that's kind of why we're not doing the green dot thing, because I know a lot of athletes feel the same way. Like I only log when I want to track. And I used to be very much, like whiteboard and Evernote and kind of journaling like Ashley. But then I just kind of got more accustomed to using Team Builder, and Garmin's already tracking like a green bar on every calendar day that I do. And so I'm like, I don't need to further track these things, but I think I'll go back to it once I ditch the wearable. I'll probably just start writing my workouts down in a journal again and kind of bring that back. I use I made it. It's called Train on my watch. So I hit Train and I hit Start, and it's the only one I use. I don't use anything else. And it doesn't track distance or anything. It just has heart rate and it tracks calories and it tells me my time.
So how do you know how far you run? Do you just know your route?
Most of the time. Yeah. I mean, it depends. Like how often do we need to run a distance? A lot of times it's like for time. And so I'll know time better than I know distance. But if it's a mile, yeah, I know that should be like step 1. Everyone, when you move to a new place, you need to know where your 400 meter out and back mark is, your 800, your mile, your 3 mile, your 5 mile. And so, yeah, I have all those parts. Like I know where they're all at. And so if it's time, I just do an out and back. If it's like a 40-minute run, I go 20 minutes out, 20 minutes back. Or truthfully, it's a little bit more like 18 minutes out, 22 minutes back. That's you gotta factor you gotta factor in fatigue. You can't just act like you're perfect, So anyway, that's how I use wearable. I use one little thing. It's called Train. Once we started this challenge, I set up a little notification. Like you can set up these things on a Garmin, and so when it hits 300 calories, it'll notify, like the watch beeps and like makes all these noises, and it's like, oh, you got 300 calories, and so
fancy.
Like I won't stop a workout until that noise has happened. I also can see it on there. So that's the only thing that's reported on there. It'll say my current heart rate, my current time, total time, my lap time, and my calories burned. So 4 inputs on one screen. And lap time I use kind of how Joe uses, like as a set. If I need to know, if I want to like hit lap and just look at a rest time, or if I'm trying to time blocks. I've been a real freak about blocks lately. Like I've just really gotten into like trying to perfectly maintain the workout in blocks. Like I'll do a warm up for 1 block, and then I will, if it's like 2 blocks, I will make sure everything fits perfectly into those 2 blocks. Like I've just been a freak about the blocks on Garage Gym Athlete. And the reason being is because I can normally finish Garage Gym Athlete workouts a lot faster than they're required, but I can't do that in this challenge. That's not an advantage in this challenge. And so I'm just like, if I finish with like 4 minutes left, I'm like, okay, I'm finished. I'm resting 4 minutes until the next block. And then I'll start the next block of training.
Wow.
And just keep going. And that way every workout's exactly 60 minutes, sometimes a little bit over. And so I'm getting that time I need to
I'm just going to get you a 1 hour sand timer with 5 lines for every 10 minutes. And then you just walk in. And when you walk in, just turn it upside down. And that's it. That's
basically what a Timex watch is. It's like, oh, just turn the sand dial on your wrist. So yeah, that's how I do it. I don't know if there's anything else wearable wise. I leave mine in airplane mode basically all the time. I don't let it tell me anything that I don't want to know at all.
Yep,
there's no notifications allowed. I was the same with the Apple Watch, and that's another reason I abandoned the Apple Watch, because I felt like I wasn't using it for like what 80% of its use would be, like communicating with your phone and stuff. But I don't even like using my phone. I have 114 unread text messages right now. Like I don't like using that stuff. I don't like notifications. So my watch is in airplane mode 100% of the time, except for when I train. And then, yeah, that's basically it. I don't let any notifications happen. If we're talking about in general, how I use wearables and devices, they're not allowed to tell me things. I tell them things. That's it.
And you're dying. Don't text Jerred Moon. How many times have we said that?
That sums up how I feel about technology. I'm in charge of you. You're not in charge of me.
The dumbest smartwatch.
Yeah. I have the most expensive, dumbest smartwatch money can buy. That's like, I'm using 1% of what this Garmin watch offers. But
I love that Joe had like a physical reaction when you said 114 unread text messages.
Well, I had to look.
What he saw was that red bubble. It's because we know that it's on your screen.
I have 105 unread text messages and 10 calls that I guess people have called me.
I guess people have called me. I need to look at my phone now just to see no red numbers, just to feel better.
And I have a to-do list app that's telling me I have 16 things to do today and 1 Slack message. Probably one of you people.
No.
I sent you one as soon as you said that. I just sent you one real quick.
Yeah, there you go. That's my life and notifications. I don't know how we went down that rabbit hole, but I don't check things.
I don't have mine linked to any kind of phone notifications either. Like for me, it's a fitness thing, and I don't need my phone for fitness. I have the watch for it, and I don't need my watch for phone stuff. Like actually the phone goes on do not disturb while I'm training. So like you can't reach me while I'm training.
One thing I do love about the new Apple update is you can like create your own custom do not disturbs.
Yep.
And so I have one that it blocks everything from everyone except for Emily.
Yep.
And so at any point in time during the day, she can call or text me and she's the only one. And then
not guaranteed he'll pick up, but
yeah, after that,
I pick up if Hannah texts. It's the same thing on mine. If she texts me or she calls me, I pick up. And
now you'll be surprised. I guarantee of these 105 unread messages, Emily is not one of those. Her messages are read instantly because she's that important.
You're a smart man. All right, should we go to the workout?
Yeah, who wants to brief it?
I got it.
All right.
So we got Sally's Revenge. So it's going to start with a 1 mile run. Then right when you finish that mile, you're going to go to Sally pull-ups. So how all of these calisthenics are going to be the full song of, what was the song again?
Yellow?
No,
Flower.
Oh.
Yellow flower, you know. Yeah. So Flower, but the song is on, if you're in Team Builder, it's on there, or it's linked places. Just look for it. So the Sally Up song, even if you Google like Sally
Powered
Up,
by Moby.
Yeah.
Welcome to the party.
Sally's Revenge, powered by Moby.
Well, he kept acting like he didn't know what you guys just said, and you said it.
If in case they can't remember, Sally Up will still bring you.
It will.
Result.
It will very much still come up.
So you'll do pull-ups to that entire song. Then you'll rest 3 minutes. Then you do push-ups for that entire song. and then rest for 3 minutes, and then squats that entire song. And it tells you to go up, you go up. It tells you to go down, you go down. So that means you're going to be holding the bottom of the squat or the bottom of the push-up. The bottom of the push-up is not chest on the ground. It is chest hovering above the ground. And that also means you'll be dead hanging on pull-ups for a very long time, but probably too long. So 3 minutes in between this calisthenics. And then right after you finish squats, you go and do another mile for time to finish it off.
This is the easy zone 2 variation for this one. It's almost a zone 2 workout, the whole thing.
I've done it in zone 2 before. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like squats you might get out of zone 2.
Yeah. I do.
Unless your body weight. If
Yeah,
your body
unless-
weight.
Yeah. I at
You
least
could
try to put a
fix it.
barbell on.
Yeah.
But
Oh no, that doesn't happen to me on body weight. I'm sorry. Forget that I said that.
what? Anyways, I said you should just listen to Flower the entire time, even during the run. It would suck, but you should do that.
I kind of want to listen to Yellow by Coldplay now and see if I could crank out a
Stop.
workout. Because doesn't he say yellow quite a few times in the song? Maybe we could come up with something.
No, not that often. It's only in the chorus.
Perfect.
So we only play the chorus.
No,
We could-
like you
we
do
could
something
gonna-
until he says yellow.
Yeah. Oh no.
1,000-meter sprint at yellow, and then do something
Oh.
else.
What?
That has nothing to do with Sally's
I meant
Revenge.
100.
Sorry, you guys can
Sally's
continue.
Revenge. The one of the few tips that I had was you are not chest on the ground. You're not resting on the ground during your push-ups. Don't do that. And the other one was run your miles quickly. That's where your score comes from, is from finishing quickly, because obviously the during the song only goes like it's a set amount of time. You can't speed that up. You can't slow it down. The rest time is built in. You can't speed that up. You can't slow that down. So all that work in the middle is at a set time and a set pace. So the only way that you can make a better score is for your runs. So run your miles quickly. So if you want to score better, that's pretty much awesome. And I hate this song. By the way. I've only ever listened to it for this workout. And
It's not really a very good song. Super
Yeah.
repetitive. Like, come
Yeah.
on,
yeah, it's
Moby.
horrible.
Whoa.
get creative. Try creating some good music for once, Moby. This is
Not
like-
a sponsor.
I just kept saying it because I think Ashley must like the Moby. No.
I don't like it. I don't dislike it. I don't hate it. Like
Let's
how does.
talk about your feelings about Moby.
Oh no, here we go.
Okay. How does Moby make you feel? Okay, so this workout, one of my favorites. I really like it. It's awful. It's awful in every sense of the definition of awful. It's awful, and you can't do much to make it better. So the real benchmark here is we're talking about journaling, right? Or noting. You can note in Team Builder, or you can journal like Ashley, but like the real thing that you need to do is make sure you write down weights if you're using weights for just the squat, right? What that weight is, but then also, since you probably won't be able to do all of them, each exercise perfectly, just note like how far you got into the song. If like you can see that, I forget how long the song is. I think it's like 3 to 4 minutes or something like that. But if you're like, okay, at a minute and a half, I had to like skip some ups or some downs or whatever to rest, write that down, like whatever you need to do, like write down where you failed. And the same with the hanging, like on the pull-up bar, like, did you make it once? Did you make it twice? Like, could you not do the up a single time? And so this would be more journaling where you were at, where you were getting stuck in the workout, because the full completion of this workout is very hard. I might even venture to say maybe the hardest workout we have to finish just as it's written at any level without breaking. I do think this is our hardest Meet Yourself Saturday to complete. Trying to think. Yeah, definitely. Because you either can or you can't. There's no like, I finished it. It's like, no, you didn't do it.
It even
So-
sucks with like ring rows or inverted body rows, whichever one you do.
Yeah.
If you're not doing pull-ups, it still sucks.
So yeah, I don't have anything to help you with this one. There are no tips. It's just journal where you got and try and do better next time. This would be a really good one for like the year-long thing, like a Murph, or like people doing Broken Arrow and stuff, doing every week for a year. This would be a good one just to see if you could get it to completion. This would be a solid one. You'd be really good at pull-ups by the end of it too.
Yeah.
Those are some controlled pull-ups. But that's all I have. Anybody have anything else? All right, we'll get out of here. I mentioned at the beginning, I feel like Garage Gym Athlete and this team are doing things correctly when it comes to your health and your fitness and your programming. So if you want to be a part of that, like a non-gimmicky, super effective, like awesome community-based programming thing online, Garage Gym Athlete would be where you want to be. If you're more interested in the quick fix Instagram influencers, I don't even know how you're here or why you're here, and you don't need to be here again. And that's fine if you want to get out. But for the community who, you're doing it, you're daily over decades, you've embraced that mentality, you're putting in the work, you're posting in the group, you're holding each other accountable. You guys are awesome. And you really make, us what we are. And I appreciate it. If you want to sign up for Garage Gym Athlete, you can do that, garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a 14-day free trial. And remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. To the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.